Let's now delve deeper into India's relations with the Caribbean nation. Let me welcome Ambassador Anil Wadhwa, former senior diplomat who is joining us now. Ambassador Wadhwa, welcome to this special presentation and program on DT India. Your thoughts, your reflection on the first visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Trinidad Tobago. How do you look at the significance of this visit?
Well, given the fact that it's one of the first prime ministerial visit after 1999
Yes.
itself is very significant. I'm glad that the prime minister has found this opportunity to visit this country, which is fast becoming a very important gateway for India into the whole of the Caribbean. And also because it now throws up some new opportunities which did not exist some years ago. All in all, it's a very significant visit. It's going to lead to some long-term consequences and results. The diaspora, I'm sure, is very excited about it. Again, as we just heard in your report, there is a substantial number of the diaspora in Trinidad and Tobago, 40 to 45% of this 1.6 million people who live in this country, a very beautiful country, full of natural resources, oil and natural gas, and in addition to that, now looking at new opportunities like new and renewable energy.
And the focus that is there on the diaspora, as you mentioned, so about 40% of the population, we understand, is of Indian descent. What kind of diaspora-driven diplomacy does it give rise to? How does it characterize the kind of engagement that the two nations have with one another?
Well, the fact that the diaspora from India has been there for a number of years now, because starting from 1845, when the ship Fatel Razak landed in Trinidad and Tobago. After that, a total of 143,000 indentured labor from India have entered this country, and now the descendants have obviously they're forming a majority in the country, and therefore we have a situation where Trinidad and Tobago is one of the few countries in the world where Indian diaspora can actually drive politics of the country, provided they work together and provided all the groups come together. And this is exactly what has happened in this country. So today, you have an Indian origin prime minister, Indian origin president, both of whom are women, and both of whom have received the Prasar Bharati Samman Award. Of course, the diaspora is now become the medium of entry of Indian companies into this country because of the cultural linkage, of course, and the ease of doing business with people who understand each other. The Caribbean, because of the CARICOM free trade agreement, being Trinidad, along with Guyana, where the Prime Minister also visited last, these are two countries in the region which will become the hub for Indian companies entering into the region for business and investment.
Right. A little more on that, sir. The significance of India's engagement with the Caribbean region and particularly Trinidad and Tobago, the significance that it carries in multiple domains. You mentioned trade. It's like a strategic gateway into the Caribbean for India. How do you look at it in the broader perspective, the domains where India could engage in further?
Well, so right now, for example, the main engagement is in energy, so oil and natural gas. But the country is emerging as a very important source of diversified resources for India, because the Indian consumption of oil and natural gas is only going to go up in the future. All projections point to that. And so it would be best if Indian companies could invest in this country. It's got a very good infrastructure. It's also got natural resources which have lasted for a long period of time. And at the same time, it needs Indian pharmaceuticals, tertiary care. There are opportunities in renewable energy and in agriculture, as well as Indian innovation. So Indian innovation means that the whole digital stack, which India is now famous for all over the world, is something that the country desires. and it would be a good model to follow for Trinidad and Tobago because it's had successes elsewhere. So there are a number of opportunities which have arisen ahead of this visit.
Right. And if you look at Prime Minister's five-nation visits, first stop Ghana, and now we're looking at the Caribbean nation. We're looking at important nations of the global south that Prime Minister has chosen for this visit. So in that larger perspective, India's deeper engagement with the global south taking place with Prime Minister's historic five-nation visit.
Yes, definitely. And I think there are two or three important trends which one can discern from the visit of these five nations this time. One is, of course, the engagement with Africa and therefore the global south, which is being strengthened. Secondly, is the quest for entering into MOUs in mining and critical minerals, which has become very important for India. And third is India's energy security, which you can see during this visit for Trinidad and Tobago, for instance, it will emerge as an important aspect. Fourth is the issue of defense cooperation with a number of countries of the global south. We saw that already in Ghana, and we're going to also see it, play out in countries like Namibia when the next visit takes place. We're also looking at a very important aspect of the demand from these countries for Indian pharmaceuticals and vaccines and agriculture machinery. Here there are opportunities which are there for Indian companies to exploit, and they would be the Indian companies would be much better off if they have a presence, if they invest in these countries, and therefore it will be a win-win situation for both.
Right. I want to return to the kind of significance that the Indian diaspora occupies in Trinidad and Tobago. Let's talk about the leadership. You mentioned, of course, about President Christine Carla Kangalu and Prime Minister Kamla Prasad Bisesar, both Indian origin women, President and Prime Minister, actively also engaged in and awarded at the Prasar Bharati Samman. So in that sense, it talks volumes about the manner in which the Indian diaspora has been able to capitalize and achieve great success in the political domain, for one, in this island nation.
Exactly, and I think it's important that the Indian diaspora is united, and if they work together, which is a classic case which has happened in Trinidad and Tobago, there is no way that they can lose elections because they are, their numbers are they actually outnumber any other kind of community which is present in this country. So the key here is to have similar kind of policies, similar kind of thinking, and that is exactly what has happened. And therefore, we have now today a situation where both Prime Minister and the President are of Indian origin in this country.
Right, and Prime Minister in his departure statement earlier also spoke about the deep cultural ties, people-to-people connect, and he gave reference to the Prasar Bharati program as well, where he had an opportunity to engage with the leadership. So in that sense, it will be interesting to see how that engagement is taken forward. There's an important diaspora program that is also lined up during Prime Minister's visit here, sir.
Yes, that's right, and it's a very famous venue. In fact, the National Cycling Velodrome,
Yes.
which is quite famous because it's the number of events have been held there in the past as well. And it's here that the diaspora is going to meet the Prime Minister. I'm sure he's looking forward to meeting them as well, and essentially talking to them about how Trinidad and Tobago has assumed importance as far as India is concerned, and how the relationship will be taken forward. And I'm sure, like at any other place the Prime Minister does, as is his forte, he will appeal to the people who are present there to act or to continue to act as brand ambassadors of India while they are living in another country.
Right. Let me also here welcome our second guest, Professor Rahul Mishra from School of International Studies, JNU, who is joining us in this special presentation. Professor Mishra, welcome to DD India. Your thoughts first on, it's the first prime ministerial engagement from India with the Caribbean nation in about 2 decades. How do you read its significance?
It's a very significant movement, landmark, because not only this provides an opportunity to connect or reconnect rather with the Indian community in Trinidad and Tobago, but also to revitalize India's outreach in the Caribbean region. India has had a good presence in the region through trade and commerce and non-traditional and traditional security ties, but they were more or less confined to second-tier engagement. This provides an opportunity for India to engage with the region through Trinidad and Tobago on a number of issues. We know that COVID-19 pandemic affected this partnership that India had with the region because of limited connectivity and distance and so many other factors. India's engagement was somewhat limited during the pandemic era. So this is now a time to revitalize the relationship on number of factors: energy cooperation, economic and trade cooperation, investments, people to people connect, and I think also India playing a more positive role in influencing or rather encouraging the Indian community to engage more directly and more confidently with India and contribute to India's rise and vice versa.
Right, Professor Mishra, also we'll talk about each of these aspects, but there's a great interest in the manner in which India's diaspora has been in particular being able to achieve great success in the twin island Caribbean nation. Give us a picture of the manner in which these ancestral ties have evolved into modern partnership in the 21st century. How has that trajectory been?
Well, India's traditional approach to diaspora, starting from independence era, was that we do not engage or indulge in the domestic politics of any of our partner countries where our diaspora has a significant presence. Things started changing with greater engagement, diaspora becoming a part of India's foreign policy, and therefore greater engagement with launch of the Prasar Bharati Divas and greater engagement with the people of Indian origin. We've also started celebrating the contributions that Indian community has made to countries across the world. And this also is an opportunity for India to revisit the past and see how well, it was in many cases unfortunate, including in Trinidad and Tobago, how the Girmitia people, the Indians who went there to these countries, whether it is Pacific or the Caribbean or the Indian Ocean region, and worked as indentured labor. So revisiting the past, understanding that colonialism and exploitation of poorer countries at the hands of colonial masters was a very negative chapter in India's history and the global history. But now, learning a lesson from that and building positive partnerships, contributing to mutual growth and prosperity with the engagement of Indians abroad, India playing a role there. Capacity building, for example, is a very important role player there. But also India has been positively contributing in also making sure that the idea of India, India's historical contribution, the cultural heritage that India has is also celebrated. And India does that through the Know India program, for example, and a number of initiatives that the Ministry of External Affairs has taken. So relinking with the diaspora, telling them who we are and how we are all connected through history, culture, and our historical past, cultural past, our same roots, as it were, that goes back to past more than a millennia. And all of this then contributing to the rise of India, the Indian community, not a way in which China sees it, but in a more positive culture and civilizational oriented approach. So far as the developments in any of these countries where Indian community has a strong presence, whether it is Trinidad and Tobago or Malaysia or Fiji, India has not played any direct role in shaping, influencing policy making. But what India could do is perhaps playing a more direct role in building economic capacities of the Indian community people, economic capacities, their knowledge capacities, making them more aware of what is happening, but also at the same time providing more scholarships maybe to these Indian community people
more
at
responsible,
India's engineering and medical institutions, also advanced AI and IT sector areas. So in a way, building capacities so that when these young students from these countries go back to their home country, they not only celebrate India, but also contribute to their countries and play a more important role in shaping their own country's political economic future. I think that would building capacities and revisiting our past, learning from them and contributing to the building of greater, stronger ties is perhaps something that India and all these countries that have strong Indian community presence could do together.
Right.
And this
In
would
fact,
also contribute to
India's
India's
India's development
Modi's idea
partnerships.
of Viksit Bharat by 2047, because
Yes.
India cannot become a developed nation all by itself. It needs its own people,
Right.
people who are connected to India in a number of ways.
A celebration of those diaspora ties and the development partnership that you were talking about. We saw an example of it play out in Ghana. All eyes now on Trinidad and Tobago. We continue our conversation. Let's reflect on some updates that have come in so far. Former Minister of Industry, Enterprise and Tourism of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Bhoendradatt Tewarie, spoke exclusively to DD India about how the Indian diaspora there celebrates the diversity.
We have all manner of people from the Middle East, from Europe, from the Americas in this country. So we also celebrate our Indianness, our Indian civilization, but we also celebrate diversity. We have a lot of respect for diversity and multiracial and tolerance and existence with each other. And we look forward to a better world. And we see no better place to start than with good relations with India as a beginning and connecting with India, the African continent, South America, Latin America. Those are good things, I think, and creating opportunities for the developing world.
And Dr. Bhoendradatt Tewarie also spoke of Trinidad and Tobago's willingness to work with India on sustainable development strategies, especially for small states and islands.
India is playing an important role and playing an important role in the development in the developing world. And I think she's playing a leadership role. And we would be happy to work with India, I think, as an island state, as a small island state, as you mentioned, on sustainable development strategies, especially for small states and island states.
And we continue our conversation with Ambassador Anil Wadhwa, former senior diplomat, and Professor Rahul Mishra from JNU. Ambassador Wadhwa, we understand this is the second visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to a Caribbean nation in a very short while. Last November, in fact, he was in Guyana. Talks volumes about the kind of importance that India ascribes with its engagements with the Caribbean region.
Yeah, so as I was mentioning earlier, I think the region has become extremely important for India, given the fact that there are new opportunities that have arisen in the region. And these two countries, Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago in particular, are important gateways to the entire region. Trinidad and Tobago in particular, because it's, first of all, because it's got the free trade agreement with the rest of the countries of the region. So any Indian company which is investing or has a presence here will obviously have access to the entire regional trade. Secondly, from the long-term perspective, we have new opportunities that have come up now. Today, for example, early morning, I was listening to the Foreign Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Sobers, where he was talking about how they're looking forward to this visit in order to drive benefit from digital technologies, artificial intelligence, and the whole governance process and the substack of digital governance as far as India is concerned, because it's been a successful model which has worked very well in other countries, and they would like to borrow this as well. From the Indian perspective, of course, there are new opportunities besides oil and gas investments into new areas like renewable energy, agriculture and agricultural equipment, tertiary care, and pharmaceuticals. And these have existed for a while, but at the moment, because of the opening up of the country to India in a very big way, there would be much more investments that the Indian companies would be looking forward to. And also, along with that, India is looking to Trinidad for sports and sports technologies, because if India is to play a bigger role going forward, on the world stage in sports, then Trinidad is an extremely important country for athletics, as we all know. Small country, but it's produced some excellent athletes in the past. They're world winners and champions. And also the fact that we have, Indian investments which have done well in Guyana, and that could be replicated in Trinidad as well.
Right, there's a particular point about sports, Ambassador Wadhwa. Cricket, also a common link between India and what is referred to as the Caribbean West Indies.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's been there for a very, very long time. And the Calypso, which has been written in the past, as you know, for our own cricketers like Mr. Gavaskar, they're still very famous. The singers like Ricky Jay, for instance, become very famous in India also in the past.
Right. Professor Rahul Mishra, just to understand the significance of Trinidad Tobago in the larger Caribbean region and also the CARICOM region, the political and economic grouping that the Caribbean nation forms, what significance does this twin island nation occupy in it? Professor Mishra, if I can bring that question to you.
Well, Trinidad and Tobago, of course, is one of the leading economies in the region, in the CARICOM as a multilateral grouping, but also in the Caribbean region. It is a high-income country, closely aligned with the U.S., is one of the leading economies when it comes to contributing to overall growth of the region. So partnering with Trinidad and Tobago is, of course, a very important factor, or can be a very important contributor in India's engagement with CARICOM as well as the Caribbean region. I think energy security is a very important aspect going forward in India Trinidad and Tobago relationship. India's energy security plans, as we are experiencing turbulence in the Middle East region, India must go out to other parts of the world, centers that are regional centers that are not conventionally included as part of energy security, energy supplies. So Caribbean, and if I include Venezuela, can be a very important partner in that. That is regarding the traditional security, but non-traditional energy supplies, but non-traditional sources. Renewable energy is another very important segment where, whether it is wind or hydro energy, Trinidad and Tobago and India can work together. Indian investments in the energy sector can boost both India's energy security endeavors, but also build the relationship on a stronger footing. So I think partnering with Trinidad and Tobago is a very important component. And if India sustains its focus on the Caribbean region and CARICOM, partnering with Trinidad and Tobago would be an essential component of that.
Right. Ambassador Wadhwa, when you were enumerating the areas of engagement between India and Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, one of the areas that the former minister spoke about was sustainable development, especially the concerns of the small island nations with climate change and other disasters. Partnership with India could play a crucial role.
Absolutely, he's quite right there, because India has been very active as far as SIDS countries are concerned, the Pacific Island states are concerned, and in New York, our mission has been particularly responsive to the needs of the small island states, because it's an important grouping within the United Nations system. All of them, of course, have one very important vote individually on any issue in the United Nations, especially the United Nations General Assembly. They play a very important role, and they all vote as a bloc, which is very extremely important to remember as well. So for them, sustainability is the main issue, and also mitigation is a very important issue. Why? Because most of them are suffering from the threat. There's a looming threat which they face of inundation from the sea due to climate change. So obviously they would be looking forward to countries which take the lead in this respect, which are also paying attention to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and also helping them with development finance, mitigation finance, etc. So there, Trinidad is quite aware of India's role, and that is what the minister was referring to when he said that we need to develop our own strategies in tandem with India as to what what are the areas to explore, what is the policy to be adapted, and how to carry other countries together in this endeavor. Remember that India has emerged as a very important voice of the global south, not just as far as Africa is concerned, but also for the small island states is concerned. So therefore, this sentiment it gels with that general thinking which is there on the part of the small island developing states.
Right. Professor Rahul Mishra, in moments from now, we should have visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi having reached Trinidad and Tobago. This point about the significance of the visit from the perspective of India's engagement with the nations of the Global South. Prime Minister Modi has been very vocal about climate justice for Global South and all the elements that it involves. So from that perspective, the comments that came in earlier about the role that smaller islands can play in closer engagement with India in this domain could be significant.
Indeed, India's engagement with the countries, the small island countries across the Global South, has been a very important component of Prime Minister Modi's foreign policy and India's strategy over the past 11 years. We've seen that a number of initiatives have been taken. Ambassador mentioned the Pacific Island countries. With Pacific Island countries, we have what is called as FIPIC. With the Caribbean countries, with the CARICOM countries, India held its first summit, India CARICOM summit in 2019. And these summits were driven by this idea that climate change and climate mitigation issues are important, climate justice is important, looking at sustainable development, but also capacity building in dealing with non-traditional security threats is something that India and these small island countries of Global South have to work together on. So I think reaching out to partners from Global South, especially the small island developing nations across the Pacific to the Caribbean in the Indian Ocean region is a good attempt on two counts. One, that it will consolidate the Global South, a common Global South voice in presenting its case at the global forums, including at the United Nations, but also India's attempt to show its solidarity on issues of climate change that look to the smaller countries that look, India is not just another rising power or a superpower in making. Our approach to climate change, our approach to sustainable development, our approach to climate justice is different. And we are with you on when it comes to issues of survival of your country in the long run and your well-being of your people. So I think this initiative, as you rightly mentioned, should be seen in the wider context of India's leadership role in the Global South and also India's very smartly designed and implemented attempts to reach out to smaller developing island nations from across the globe.